Episode of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are going to be talking a little bit about some anti-beef narrative, what that means, where they come from, and I picked top three, it might not be top three things that we hear a lot about in the media as far as the anti-beef culture goes, and how we can combat those as people within agriculture, and just really equip ourselves with some quick, easy facts that you guys can remember, and just some tidbits of information on both sides, where it's coming from, how we can combat it, and what that looks like. But first and foremost, I want to discuss where the anti-beef narrative comes from. I feel like it's really important to have a good basic understanding of where this is coming from in order to combat it. So first and foremost, we're seeing it from three main places. So we're seeing it from mainstream media and pop culture. We're seeing it from well-funded advocacy groups. And then we're also seeing it from environmental extremism online. So with the mainstream media and pop culture, this is where you're seeing the really oversimplified and just really catchy headlines, like cow farts are killing the planet, but then they're not explaining it with any scientific content. And this is also where we're seeing documentaries like Cowspiracy or What the Health, where it has shaped millions of opinions with flawed data, emotional music, and honestly just zero producer input at the end of the day. And I think it's really important to remember as producers that when Hollywood drives the story of agriculture, the truth tends to get trampled, right? We know this. We know that even if it is a well-produced show about agriculture, or it's a Western rom-com or something like that, they still get the facts wrong. And I think that it's not always 100% Hollywood's fault, right? If you talk to a doctor, they're going to say that everything on Grey's Anatomy is incorrect, right? So it's not always 100% Hollywood's fault, but they do drive the story in contexts like this, as far as the mainstream media goes, and as far as different documentaries and things like that. So I think it's important to remember that our voices as agriculturalists are not heard in Hollywood, and that a lot of mainstream media and pop culture, a lot of opinions get derived from that. Next, well-funded advocacy groups. So this is where you're seeing institutions and organizations like the Good Food Institute or Eat Lance Commission, or some others that shall not be named, that I think you guys can connect the dots, where they receive millions to billions of dollars in funding from people that are pushing a plant-based future. These groups have marketing teams, they have lobbyists, they have PR firms, and a clear agenda. That agenda is to reduce or eliminate animal agriculture. When you have billions upon billions of dollars and a whole team of people dedicated to fighting against agriculture with really snippy and easy to digest quick things that when they put a headline out there, dang, it's hard not to fall into those headlines. It's hard not to believe what they're saying, right? And I think it's important, this isn't just a food fight. This is a fight for narrative control. And beef producers have just genuinely just been left out of the room in a lot of these situations and discussions. So number 3, environmental extremism online. So this is where you're seeing your eco-influencers on TikTok and Instagram with millions of followers that oversimplify climate conversation. And I think that this goes outside of just eco conversation. This goes to just animal activist extremism online, where influencers, I'm saying in quotations, heavy on that, have a lot of power with their audience, that they can sit there and they could probably say that the Earth is flat, and a lot of people would believe them, right? If they say it with enough authority, and if they say it with enough and they capture that viewer in the first few seconds, I think it's algorithms amplify shock value content. That's what I call content where they are coming in and they say something really quick that it jolts you, right? You're wait, what? What do you mean? What is that? And so the algorithms are amplifying that, meaning that the louder and more extreme are more the louder and more extreme it is, the more likely it is to spread, no matter how true it is. And I do have a stat that I want to share with you guys on this. So Google search trends show a 400% increase in plant-based searches from 2016 to 2. And nearly all major fast food chains now offer plant-based options. This is a cultural thing, not just nutritional. This is a cultural shift that we have seen, not just a nutritional shift. So now let's dive into 3 different anti-beef claims that I want to talk about with you guys and some facts that you guys can have to fight back. So claim number 1, cattle are the biggest cause of climate change. Okay, we hear this one a lot. This is not a new claim, but here's why it's wrong. The EPA reports that all of U.S. agriculture accounts for 11% of total greenhouse gas emissions, and beef cattle are only about 2.2% of total U.S. emissions. Compare that to transportation, which is at 29%, and energy production, which is at 25% of the total emissions in the U.S. And I think the key point here, a lot of us understand this as agriculturalists, and especially as the fact of climate change and cow farts and all of those things have been really hot for about the past couple years. But cattle are part of the natural carbon cycle. So this isn't like we're burning fossil fuels, which releases carbon that was previously stored for millions of years. So we are releasing in like the natural carbon cycle, the carbon that is being released was previously stored for millions of years. Like it's a cycle, right? It's not like we're sitting here burning fossil fuels and releasing those into the atmosphere, right? So cattle are part of the natural carbon cycle. I think that is a really easy fact to remember and really big key point in this, that if people say that cow farts are killing the planet, then hey, there's your thing. Cattle are part of the natural carbon cycle. They're cycling things in and out. So cattle aren't just creating carbon, they are cycling it. Globally, cattle account for about 6% of GHGs, so not the majority by any stretch, like not even close in any way, shape, or form. And it is also important to remember that beef production has reduced emissions per pound of beef by about 30% in the last 30 years. As we continue to build a better beef ecosystem and better ranches and be more sustainable and just really look at growing a better animal, we are naturally going along this path. For the last 30 years, have we been talking about climate change? No, we have not. Well, maybe some people have, but not in the ag industry. And that has not been a main focus. But you can see that over the last 30 years, we've seen a 30% decrease in emissions per pound. So even though we weren't trying, we were still doing it because we were building better beef, building a more sustainable herd, and really just working to be a better industry as a whole. So if people are saying this, remember, cattle are part of the natural carbon cycle. Beef cattle are only about 2.2% of total U.S. emissions. Ag accounts for 11%, and then just throw at them that their cars are 30% and their energy production is 25%. So, which puts it way off as far as what ag is. Okay, number 2, beef is bad for your health. This is one that bounces in and out of trends. So I would say that it is still one that gets pushed really heavily, but there's also been, as far as like TikTok and social media influencers and all of those things goes, it bounces in and out, right? Sometimes it's trending that beef is bad for your health. Sometimes it is trending that beef is a great like nutrient and protein source. And you know what? Maybe I'm just on the right side of TikTok now, but I think it is still important to be equipped with the facts of why beef is good for your health. So we're still going to discuss this one. So why it is wrong. Beef is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth. It provides high-quality, complete protein, bioavailable iron, zinc, and vitamin B12. All of these nutrients that are harder to get from plant-based sources. So, you need, here's a little fact that you can remember. You'd need to eat 8 cups of spinach to get the same amount of iron as a 3-ounce serving of beef, and your body absorbs more from the beef. 1 3-ounce serving of beef provides nearly half of your daily protein needs. Now, most of us be eating a lot more protein than that? Yes. But according to national health organizations and their recommendations for daily protein needs, that is what they say. But the gist of that is beef is filling your protein needs very well. You are getting a ton of naturally derived vitamins and nutrients that you don't need to be taking a bunch of supplements on the counter every single morning. Just go eat some beef, right? So here are some other facts to understand about this. In underserved populations, animal source foods are critical for growth, cognitive development, and disease prevention. This is probably an area that I get so riled up when people talk about how animal protein is bad for your health, right? We are so lucky here in the US to be able to have a wide variety of protein availability to us, right? Like you go to the grocery store and you have every protein that you could possibly think of at your fingertips. Not all populations have that, and not all people, even not all people here in the US have that, right? Animal protein is providing great vitamins, great nutrients, and it is vital for growth and cognitive development and then disease prevention as well. So it ticks me off to no end when people sit here and they say that cattle are killing the planet and all of this, and beef is bad, don't eat it, it's bad for your heart, it's bad for your health, it's going to kill you. People that are vegan are living longer and all of this stuff. And they take into no account the people in this world that have no other option. And they are spreading misinformation at mass rates that if we have an underserved population here in the US, that a mom is going to the grocery store and the only thing that she is able to provide for her children that week is some type of beef, then and she feels guilty about that because she saw some influencer on TikTok talking about how beef is bad for your health and how cattle are killing the planet. Like that ticks me off to no end at all. And I know that's just me getting off on a little bit of a rant, but it's still extremely important to remember that it is great for your overall health and it provides you with a lot of things that you need to function as a human. Another extra fact for you guys is studies linking red meat to cancer or heart disease often only rely on weak observational data and don't isolate lean beef from processed meats. So that is a big fighting thing that people have been pushing, right? There are studies out there that say that red meat is linked to cancer and heart disease and all of the yada, yada, yada. Like that's their thing right now, is that red meat is causing cancer and heart disease and that it's linked to them. Well, it is important to remember that not all scientific studies are created equal, and not all studies, like it is important to remember that, like, don't just look at the headlines, right? Don't just look at the headlines. Don't just look at the articles written about the studies. You need to go actually read them. So most of the studies that are linking red meat to cancer and heart disease, they are observational. So they're just looking at things. They're not doing a ton of testing on different situations. And then they're not isolating lean beef from processed meats. We all can sit here and tell you that the ground beef that is in my freezer is very different from the hamburger patty that you're getting from McDonald's, right? Like those are two extremely different things. And if you only eat McDonald's hamburgers, you could take everything off and just eat the hamburgers for the rest of your life. Yeah, you might have some issues. But if you take my lean ground beef that is in my freezer, that is very different. Very, very, very different than that processed meat. Okay. So that is also important to remember, that when facts are being spewed at you like that they sound great, right? Like there've been scientific studies done that are linking red meat to cancer. That grabs your attention real quick. And then you sit there and you second guess, like, wait, scientific studies done. Okay, what is this about, right? Everyone does that, but it is important to use our critical reading skills and go and actually get the facts from these, right? And not just the quick headlines that are feeding narratives. So at the end of the day, guys, we're not just feeding people, we are fueling health. Removing beef from the plate is a public health risk. Point blank period. End of discussion. It is a public health risk if we remove beef from the plate. In today's cattle business, efficiency isn't just a goal, it is a necessity. Here at Cattle USA, we are excited to partner with MJE Livestock Equipment. They design working facilities that streamline your operation, reduce labor costs, and enhance herd health. Their modular systems are built to adapt as your ranch grows, ensuring long-term value and durability. Invest in equipment that works as hard as you do. Visit mjelivestock.equipment.com to learn more today. Okay, number 3. Cattle are abused and factory farms are cruel. This is one that I think we are fighting more and more as of current. And I just had a really amazing discussion with Kristen Nichols, Dr. Kristen Nichols from Certified Angus Beef. And she said that we are actually seeing a little bit of a consumer trend away from environmental practices and caring. They still care about those, but it's almost just an expectation now rather than pointing it out a ton. And they're seeing more of a consumer trend towards animal welfare and factory farms and what all of that means, right? And so I think that this is an area that I left this one for last for a reason. This is one that needs to be talked about, and we need to know how to communicate well and with facts about animal welfare within the cattle industry. And outside of just having a conversation and sharing your own individual story, I think it's important to know some facts that you can share within those conversations, right? Because if you're having a conversation with a consumer and you're able to sit there and you're like, not on my ranching operation, this is how we do things and this is how we operate and these are our focuses and all of these things, that's amazing. That's really, really important to have. And that personal relationship is great, but it's also, you need to stand up for the beef industry as a whole, not just for your ranching operation. So here's some facts for you. Over 91% of U.S. cattle operations are family owned, not some nameless quote unquote factory farm. And I'm not even going to get into the factory farm thing because in my opinion, that's not a thing. Like, I don't believe in those words. But if we went down that rabbit hole, that would be an entire episode in its own for me. So I'm not even going to get into that in the aspect of like, it's just important to remember that like there is a way that you can communicate this, but I think it's also important to just like steer away from the factory farms thing, right? Like, they're just really remind people that like those really aren't a thing. Like 91% of US cattle operations are family owned, and that other 9% that aren't family owned, they are business owned or multiple families own them, or there's factory farm is not a word I like to use. So really just try and steer away from that and don't try and just focus on it at all. Number 2, another fact that you can share. I really like sharing about BQA. So beef quality assurance and the fact that we have strict animal welfare standards in place, and that with a BQA certification, it prioritizes humane treatment and low stress cattle handling. And that with that, you can share that over 85% of US beef comes from BQA certified operations. So I would really like to get that number up. I think the BQA certifications are really easy to get. They're super obtainable. They're awesome to have. And it's just another certification that you can have for your operation. Having that as another thing that you can throw out there that like, hey, we have this really awesome regulatory thing that we can opt into taking. And 85% of us do. 85% of us say that like, yes, this is important to us and we're going to get BQA certified. That way the consumer knows that we are able to sit here and say that their beef is coming from a farm or a ranching operation that prioritizes humane treatment and low stress cattle handling. And then the last thing I want to kind of point out as far as like why it's wrong, a lot of cattle handling and abuse things come from situations like viral footage. We all remember the Fairlife situation that happened like 10 years ago now at this point. That's just a really good example that I still like to use when I'm talking to producers, right? So we remember what happened with Fairlife and the fact that they had a lot of bad actors come in and take video of abuse of calves, abuse of cattle on those operations. And then it got made into a full-blown documentary and it got put everywhere and blasted. And this was a thing that happened over years, right? And so I think it's important to remember that this viral footage often comes from isolated bad actors and that it is not a representation of how cattle are cared for across the industry. And the way that we communicate that matters to the people that are consumers. They don't care that people were probably hired to come in and do those videos, right? That a lot of those well-funded groups, there have been claims, and I am not claiming this, but there have been claims put out there by other people that some of these well-funded groups pay people to go in and to become an employee and then to do these things, to record these videos to fit their narrative, right? Or you just see isolated bad actors that are getting caught and then it gets blown up, right? At the end of the day, we care about how our cattle are treated, right? If we mistreat our animals, we'd be out of business. Healthy cattle equals high quality beef. So we care. We care a lot about what our cattle are feeling like, how their stress is, all of these things, because if we have cattle that are in low stress environments and being treated well, they're going to produce a better quality beef, or they're going to produce a better quality milk product, or whatever the outcome of that animal is, they're going to be better equipped to do their job. And so we care, and really communicating that aspect that, hey, like, I care about my cattle. I care about my operation. And the fact, like, share some facts about, hey, if I have cattle that are in super high stress situations, I'm going to be at risk for not having as much marbling in their meat. And that's how I get paid more and better for this higher quality beef product. So I don't want to put my cattle in these high stress situations from a business aspect, from a point that, like, I care, but then also it would be silly for me to, right? Like, it's not a way for me to cut corners by having a high stress operation. So, and I think it's just one of those situations where you have to be willing at the end of the day to sit down with all three of these claims, guys. Like, all three of these claims that we talked about, you have to be willing to sit down and have a conversation and be willing to share your side of the story with the facts, but also without the facts. Because I talk all the time. Like, you're probably like, Lauren, you've talked multiple times about how it's more important that you share the emotional side and not the facts. Yes, it is. But I think when you can find a merge of the two is where real impact happens, right? So if you can take one fact from each of these points that I made today and remember them, just account them to your memory, put them in your notes app on your phone, whatever it may be, that way you are equipped when these situations come up of, hey, people are talking about how cattle are abused. That is a great opportunity for you to step in and be like, let me share my story. But then you're also going to be equipped with the fact of, hey, actually 85% of the beef that is coming to your plate comes from BQA certified operations, and share what BQA is. And sharing a fact in combination with your story is where the impact is going to happen, and where you're actually going to truly start to leave these consumers and people that are fighting this anti-beef narrative, you're going to start fighting back. And ag needs to start fighting back. We have got to stop standing on the sidelines and letting ourselves get trampled over. We have got to stand up for ourselves, stand up for our industry, because guess what? We're the only ones that are. Right? We have amazing organizations out there from the beef industry that are standing up for us and doing a ton of advocacy work and working to fight. But at the end of the day, we need these grassroots initiatives. We need people in their everyday lives, in their small town communities, all across the world, all across the United States, standing up for ag. Whatever that looks like for you, whether it is in a grocery store or whether it's on social media or whether it is on a main stage, I don't care what that looks like for you, but you have got to start standing up for ag and be equipped with your story and then the facts and merge the two. It's as simple as that. So I hope you guys got some really great info from this episode. Maybe you learned something new, which would be even cooler, right? Like, I really hope that maybe I brought a fact to you today that even as a producer within the industry, that you were able to learn something new and come away just feeling more equipped to start having these discussions. Because at the end of the day, right, like, a lot of us don't want to have these discussions because we don't feel equipped for it. We don't feel like we're the person that is able to accurately share about the beef industry. And I hope that these facts that I gave you today just make you feel a little bit more equipped to start having these conversations. So thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the podcast. As always, if you could like, subscribe, rate, review, I know I say it every single time, but please, it does make a big difference to us. And it makes a big difference in our ability to continue to grow this platform, have more amazing guests on, and just continue to provide amazing content for you guys as producers. So thank you guys so much for another amazing episode, and happy Friday. This is a Friday episode coming out. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all on Monday. Have a good one, y'all.